Okay, so let's now take a moment to talk about Russia, or really at this point, the country that's going to be called the Soviet Union or the USSR. Um, we know that after the Russian Civil War, Vladimir Lenin won, first off, and he wanted to start a system called communism. And actually, during this period of war, he calls it wartime communism. And we'll go back to Marx, right, who said there was going to be a revolution of the people will take over the government, and the government would, the people would then share all the jobs and all the money, communism, right? Marxist socialism. And Lenin was a big supporter and promoter of Marxist socialism. Um, but after the war was over and he won, um, Russia found itself, or the Soviet Union now found itself in kind of a bad spot. There was some famines, there were some crop failures in 1920 and 1921, leading to some famines, some mass starvations. Let's take a look here at this chart. I'm equally a fan of charts as I am maps. Oh, so this, let me pull it down a second here. The blue is the USA, the green is the world, and red is Russia. And we see that Russia was behind the USA. I mean, not too much far behind the rest of the world. Understand the world includes, Africa and India and places outside of Europe. This might be more indicative of Russia's neighbors, of the Europeans, Germans, French, English. And they were always a little behind. But look right here. This is the result of the Russian Revolution. Russia's economy is just smashed. And then the famine, the crop failures and the famines, and oh my gosh, look how low Russia got. So in 1922, I believe, let me close this up. 1922, Lenin says, and this is one of the pictures around town, he says, I am going to introduce a new economic plan that he calls the NEP. And like, I don't understand, but I can't read Russian. Russian is they use different letters. They use like the old Greek alphabet versus the Latin, the Roman alphabet. So my wife, she speaks, she can read Russian, and she could tell you what this says. I should pull her in here and ask her to translate, but she'd be really mad at me. She would refuse. But anyways, they introduce a new economic plan. And in this economic plan, it kind of resembles a more, I mean, it's definitely a less extreme model version of communism. It might be like socialism. And I don't know where we put regular old socialism on this economic scale. Everyone has a different opinion. But in this system, regular people could own stuff, businesses. They could own a store. They could own grocery store, clothing store, electronics store. Private ownership of business was back, right? The government only owned the big industries. They owned the banks, they owned the mining companies and the oil companies and the heavy factories that made stuff, especially war materials. But all of the other little kind of mom and papa stores on Main Street were now allowed to go back into the hands of the people. And this made the people really happy, because at this moment, when Russia had fallen to the depths that it fell in 1922, they were calling for an end to communism. Peasants and regular people said, this was a failure. Lenin, you led us astray. Right? We should have stuck with the provisional government. We should have never listened to you. You're a fool. But all of a sudden, he opens up the door a little bit, and the economy picks back up, and Russia starts doing better. The Soviet Union starts doing better. Trotsky says, the country was on the edge of the abyss, and this NEP, this new economic program, pulls it back and saves the Soviet Union, saves communism, saves everything. Thank you, Lenin. And I mentioned before, Lenin is still revered in Russia. Agricultural output gets back. And hey, maybe this is going to work. Maybe these socialist ideas aren't so bad. And in 1924, Vladimir Lenin dies. And now there's a power vacuum. And I always used to hear this when I was in history classes when I was young, and I never got it. Vacuum? What it really means is that there's no one in power. So who's going to fill this space? Who's going to come in and take the power? I don't know why they use that phrase, power vacuum. We're going to find out that there becomes a competition between two men to take over and fill this power vacuum.